Hey guys, Scott here. The PTB for Vecna has basically come to a close, and with that, my reservoir for content and discussions about the game for the next couple of weeks. So, as always, I will now be deep diving into my recesses of random filler tier lists. Today, we're going to be going over what the overall skill level of a survivor is going to be based on the character being played, because there are definitely certain stereotypes. There's literally the phrase Meghead, because people that play Meg typically for some reason are just not good. Although I will say that it's a bit of an outdated phrase, but let's just go right into it. So let's start with the very first one, Dwight. Surprisingly, I would say Dwight is basically a no stereotype anymore. It used to be this was like the baby locker Dwight, you know, he's always going to be hiding in a locker. Locker Dwight is a meme, but for the most part, Dwight is such an old character now that there's just such a mix of people playing Dwight that there's not really a pattern that I've noticed anymore. I would say a long time ago, like 5 or 6 years ago, Dwights were always like baby Dwights, but nowadays there's a good mix of good and bad players, and I haven't really noticed any discernible pattern with Dwight players. Megs, on the other hand, despite coming out the same time as Dwight, which is when the game released, are usually worse than Dwights, but they're not always bad. There are definitely some Megs that are pretty decent, and I do think her Meghead status has been alleviated a bit over time. She used to be undoubtedly always the worst player on the team when there was a Meg, but I would say that's become diluted now with a bunch of other characters that bad players will pick. So Meg is no longer like the most embarrassing thing on your team now. Meghead is still a phrase and people still, you know, to good effect use that phrase, but Meg is not as bad as she used to be, and sometimes there are actually some really good Megs. Plus she has sprint burst, which is just always good regardless. So Claudette is honestly, I would say, no stereotype as well anymore. Again, I feel like back in the day, she used to be like, you know, the standard baby in the corner self-caring kind of player, but nowadays, not really so much. I don't think Claudette has any stereotype anymore. I think she's just an average mix of good and bad, so nothing notable anymore. Jakes? Honestly, I would say Jakes are usually good. They're more good than bad, I would say. They're not like exceptional players or anything like that, but if I had to like put an average in, it's above 50%, you know what I mean? Like, Jakes are more likely to be good than bad, in my opinion, because the reason is, of the average, you know, starting survivors, like, nobody plays Jake. So the ones that do play him are typically kind of like dedicated Jake players. So it's kind of not a stereotypical pick of any kind. It used to be like, you know, the Sabo guy, but nowadays there's just not enough Jake players, and the ones that do play him typically tend to be pretty decent. So I would say usually good. Nia, I'm going to say like on the higher end of average. It used to be, again, that this, I'm going to say it used to be a lot in this video. It used to be that she was like the urban evasion kind of rat, but nowadays Nias are typically pretty just hit or miss. I think Nias are pretty polarizing. They're never really just like average players. They're usually either really good, they got like the Dia hype shirt and shit like that, or they're not good at all. So I'm going to stick that in average, even though they typically like scale differently. But other than that, nothing too notable. Laurie's, I mean, I'm just going to say average. I don't even really see Laurie's that much. They're pretty rare nowadays, but they're never really notable in any way when I see them. So Aces, I'm going to put into almost always good. Ace is probably consistently the best player related to the character that I've seen in the game's history. I don't know why that's the case. I guess for sweaty reasons, Ace is pretty quiet. So if you're looking to minimize the amount of sound you make while injured and things like that, Ace is a very, very quiet character. But even before that, people were just good when they played Ace. Ace definitely, at least in my opinion, is the most consistently good survivor related to the player behind actually the character. So Ace is definitely very high. Bills, God bless him. Bills are almost always bad. It's like, it's the more wholesome form of bad, where they're always trying to help you and stuff like that. They're always there with like borrowed time and stuff to like, you know, 1-for-1 trade, even they're like, if they're on Death Hook and no one else is on Death Hook. They usually have good intentions, but for some reason, Bill is the original licensed man debuff, basically. So there's a whole character called licensed survivor debuff. It's the whole tier. And the reason why licensed characters tend to have worse players is because, not because picking the character makes you worse at the game, but because when you are newer to the game, you're likely to be drawn to these licensed characters. You might join from the Resident Evil chapter and go, whoa, I can play Leon S. Kennedy in this game too, that's awesome. So it's not necessarily that the players are bad for picking Leon, it's that the new players are driven to pick the licensed content. So you might be a Left 4 Dead player and go, whoa, Bill's in this game. I'm going to pick Bill. That's cool. And then, it's not that you're bad for picking Bill. It's just you're bad because you're new to the game and you're picking Bill. That's kind of like how that whole phenomenon works. So you'll see most of the licensed survivors are honestly down here, but Bill is so old now to the point where he doesn't have that licensed survivor lure anymore. He's just so old, he might as well be part of the base game at this point. So he's not in licensed survivor debuff territory, at least in my opinion. Next, Feng can be kind of, honestly, I'm going to say usually good. I would say they lean better on average than worse, but they're not ever like super notable or anything like that. I remember there used to be a golden gamer skin that people were selling for like $500, and there were like super dedicated players that would buy that. But other than that, she doesn't really have anything notable about her, in my opinion. She just sort of exists. So usually a bit better though. David's, I'm gonna say on the lower end of average. I feel like the stereotype for David is just missing dead hards, and it's just funny. But Davids are never really like super good or super bad. They're just average in my opinion. Goblins, I will say probably average too. There's probably most of them are gonna fall under average because there's just simply no stereotype or not enough people play them. I mean, I see a Quentin maybe once every 30 games. It's like a very underplayed character, but not enough to have a stereotype in my opinion. Tapp, again, is almost in like who is this tier because I just never see him, but I'm just going to throw him in average. Definitely not commonly picked enough for Licensed Survivor debuff. He's sort of a niche survivor pick, so yeah, I'm gonna put him in just average for now. Kate's, yeah, I would say Kate's are pretty average too. I don't really remember any notable Kates, but there's also no like super terrible Kates. Again, like I said, a lot of these are going to be rapid fire, just sticking them into average because there's just simply nothing notable about them in any way. Adam Francis is almost in who is this tier. However, he does have some skins that are insanely good in terms of like visibility. So honestly, I'm probably going to put him in usually good just for that fact. He has a couple of skins that are so incredibly dark that they just are straight up invisible on certain maps. So there's a reason there's like a comp Adam fit. So I'm actually going to put in usually good there. I mean, I don't think I've seen someone play Jeff in like 50 games. He's incredibly loud. He's just no one plays Jeff. Jane, I pretty much never see either. I'm honestly going to put her in who is this tier as well because Jane and Jeff, I never ever see ever. Like I have never. It's not that I've never seen them. I haven't seen them in like the past year. Just not even like a single player. So yeah, unfortunately they're in who is this tier. Ash is usually bad. I don't know why. It's not full licensed survivor debuff territory, but Ash is usually pretty bad. He's leaning towards the licensed survivor debuff, but we do have a lot of newer players that are driven to play Ash because he's just, he's Ash. You kind of want to play Ash because he's badass, but yeah, the players are usually not great. Nancy's, interestingly, started in the licensed woman debuff tier when Stranger Things first came out. Then she kind of ascended, and now, honestly, I feel like Nancy's are usually pretty good. I don't know why. I just went to get against a couple of Nancy's just yesterday, or 2 days ago, rather, and they were all good. And I think that it might be some recency bias, but usually Nancy's are... I would say Nancy Wheeler is probably the best licensed survivor in terms of the player that's going to be playing them. I don't know why that's the case, but Nancy's are usually pretty good nowadays. Steve's... I don't even want to say usually bad, but they're usually like memers. They're usually like the Steve Gold players. I don't even want to say like no stereotype, because there is a stereotype. It's just a funny stereotype. But in terms of like how good they are, they're kind of hit or miss. I'm going to put him in average just because I love Steve Goals. I'm biased. Jonathan, it's just not notable in any way. In the show, in the game, he's just not notable in any way. Yun-Jin, I'm gonna say not notable. Just not enough really people. That's not true. There's a decent amount of Yun-Jin players, but not notable in any way. Zarina is not notable, almost in who is this tier, because very few people play Zarina. Cheryl. Nah, nothing. I got nothing for Cheryl. Cybil Bennett is honestly in who is this tier. No one fucking plays Cybil. James is going to be our first licensed survivor debuff. James are almost bad, or almost always bad. It is recent enough to where people will be drawn to it for new content, that it still has that lingering debuff of a new player being drawn to the character. James Sunderland's unfortunately usually pretty bad. Lisa's... I see Lisa's more than James, but not enough to have a stereotype, so... Maria, I honestly never see. Like, I never see people play Maria, so I don't have a stereotype. Felix players, I feel like I want to put them on the high end of average. Felix players are not like... I don't want to put them in usually good. I'm going to put them in the higher end of average, because I feel like they veer towards better, but not enough to have a stereotype. Elodie, just nothing. I got nothing. Wait a minute. I don't remember your name. Wait, this is Yui. They're both Asian characters that start with the letter Y. This is Yui. This is Yun-Jin. Okay. Yeah. My bad. Now I feel like I should change these, but not really. She doesn't really have an archetype either. So they end up being in the same tier. That ended up working out. Yes, that is Yui. That is, yeah, okay. Jill Valentine. I don't feel like she's consistently as bad. I'm going to put her in usually bad, not licensed survivor bad. But Jill Valentine players are usually not great, but there's a couple of good ones. Claire, I almost want to put in who is this tier. I'm going to honor her with average, but I almost want to put her in who is this tier, because I feel like I almost never see Claire's variant. Sheva, I'm going to put in who is this, because I think I can count on one hand the Shevas I've seen in the past, like, 2 months. Which is weird, because I like Sheva. I think she's cool. She's a cool character. Leon, guaranteed licensed survivor debuff. I think Leon players are probably the worst players in the game. No offense if you're a Leon player. He is the prototypical licensed survivor debuff player. They are almost always bad. Sorry, Leon players. Carlos, I'm going to put in who is this tier because, like, nobody plays Carlos. I never see Carlos. Chris, I'm going to put in the higher end of licensed survivor debuff because it's just a glorified Leon at this point. Mikaela is usually bad. I don't know why. Something about the boons at the worst time ever. She is kind of in Meg tier right now. Jonah, we should put in war criminal tier, but for now, I'll just put him in unremarkable. Honestly, I'm going to put him in who is this tier because just no one plays Jonah. Yoichi, I feel like Yoichis are... No, I don't think they're notable enough to be they're not notable enough to be usually good, but I do think they are better more often than not. But I don't really see them that much. Haddie, I'm sorry, my dear. You're in who is this tier? Nobody plays Haddie. Ada Wong, I feel like she's not in licensed survivor debuff, but she's definitely in the worst category. She's in like the C-listers for licensed survivors, so she's not quite that bad, but not great. Rebecca Chambers, for some reason, is usually worse. She does get honored. Honestly, she's lame in Resident Evil, and she deserves to be below Ada Wong. Vittorio's are unremarkable, in my opinion. He's just sort of a generic dude. The twins. I feel like Thalita, honestly, scales a bit higher, and Renato scales lower. I don't know why this is the case. But Thalita players, for some reason, are usually better than Renato players. I don't know why. That just tends to be my experience. So she definitely comes out on top there. Tubarao, I don't even know how to say his name. I hope that was right. I'm going to put you in Who Is This tier because I haven't seen one in months. Gabriel... I don't think it's remarkable enough for any tier, so he just goes in average. Nicolas Cage's are honestly pretty average as well. They range from like memeing plot twisting psychos to just pretty decent players, but there's surprisingly not a lot of people that play Nick Cage. Like when he came out, that's all we saw, but Nicolas Cage I feel like is woefully underplayed for being such a great survivor, so I would like to rank him higher, but not enough people play him. Ripley, unremarkable basically in every way. Not enough to be a licensed survivor debuff. Just, I don't even have an opinion on Ripley players at all. I don't even remember your name. So we're gonna, actually no. No one plays you and I don't remember your name. I know she's like Ripley's kid or something. Alan Wake, I feel like does not fall under licensed survivor debuff territory. I don't know why. I feel like he's not mainstream enough for it to be under that, but he's also not remarkable really in much of any way. I'm not gonna lie. Oh, God, I don't even remember these names. I know this is Saga. Yeah, I don't know. I'm putting you in Who Is This tier because nobody plays you. Nobody plays Saga either, unfortunately. So, Sables are, we're gonna put you in the almost always bad tier. I feel like Sables are probably the Meg heads of 2026. They just have overtaken her as the generic bad female survivor. So. I'm a Sable main, so that tracks. I'm dog shit at Survivor. Definitely makes sense. So I'm going to have to put Sables in almost always bad. The twins... Honestly, I would say Aestri. If I could split this, I would put Aestri into like whatever, and then Baermar into Who Is This, because no one plays Baermar. But I'm going to put them into Who Is This, because I'm going to count them as a joint package. Lara Croft don't... Honestly, I feel like they're kind of average. They don't even fall under like the usually bad licensed stereotype. I feel like Lara's are mostly okay players. Trevor... I'm going to say no stereotype as well. I'm honestly everything except... I never see this motherfucker. I don't even remember his name. You go in Who Is This tier. Soma is sort of unremarkable as well. The hell's your name? The Cult Lady. Why can I not think of your name? Nobody plays you anymore. There was like a week after you came out that people played you. I don't even remember her name. Oh my God. Well, you know what? Fuck me for not remembering the names of 76 survivors. I'm sorry. I'm not perfect. Cult Lady, you're just unremarkable. But honestly, I'm putting you in Who Is This tier. I don't even remember the last time I saw you in game. Which is weird because she's very quiet as well. God, it's like I don't remember any of the names of the new survivors. I feel like no one plays her either. I'm gonna go in Who Is This tier by virtue of I can't remember their name and also nobody plays them, so that there's not enough players to have a stereotype. Rick Grimes. I'm gonna put you on the higher end of the licensed survivor debuffs. Because I feel like Rick players are probably the best of the worst, but they're still in the worst category. Conversely, Daryl's are usually a bit better, but usually not good. They're usually drawn to the character just for the license, so they're usually not great, but they're not like licensed survivor bad. Rick's are usually worse. I don't know. Michonne, surprisingly, are probably the best of the Walking Dead characters, but not enough to have a stereotype. Maggie's are kind of the same thing. Almost under Who Is This tier, because I feel like I never see Maggie, but I like Maggie. I think she's cool. And then finally, V. I feel like she's too new to have a stereotype, so we don't have an area to put here. Dude, I'm going to lose my shit. I'm sorry. I need to look up who the hell this character is. What the hell's her name? Tori! Ah, there you go. Tori. Thank you. We good? We all caught up? No? No, we're not all caught up. It's fine. Yeah, that's it. That's my extremely well-made tier list with lots of thought given into it. I hope that you enjoyed this. Okay, bye. I really hope Vecna comes out soon.